Kiss frontman Paul Stanley is opening up about the band's final 2 shows in early December at Madison Square Garden. They are close to the finish line on their end of the road tour. The question at hand is whether or not we'll see a reunion of the classic Kiss lineup. So many people have asked questions about whether or not this was going to happen on the end of the road tour. It didn't happen. And so now they're asking whether or not it's going to happen at the final 2 shows. Now, I want you to think about this. Really, what it comes down to at those final 2 shows, it's a matter of money. It's a matter of finances. So they've made a lot of money over the course of their career. They could easily pay these musicians, Ace Frehley, Peter, Criss, what they want to be paid for these shows, come out and do an encore. This has been discussed, and it is something they could easily afford. But the problem is Kiss just doesn't seem like they want it to happen. They don't seem very interested at all in the prospect of this classic lineup reunion. I think there's some hard feelings there. I think that they have been really butting heads, especially earlier this year in an interview where Ace Frehley, he said he was going to tell some dirt about his bandmates if they didn't walk back some things that they had said about him. And the reality is just Gene and Paul have not said the nicest things about their former bandmates in the press of late in recent years. And so now you have Paul Stanley really pretty much finally answering the question of whether or not this is going to happen. And his response is really hard to be taken by Ace and Peter as anything other than disrespect. That's the way that he describes this. And also, Gene and Paul have this thing where they go around and say, really, the Kiss fans, they want to see the current lineup. This is what they're interested in now because we've been doing this so long. The current lineup is great, but I don't think that's true. To say that there's not a huge demand for Ace and Peter to perform with Kiss at their final show. I don't believe that. It's hard to believe they're really going to do this. They're really going to go through without bringing them out. Why not just put your ego and feelings aside for this one or for these 2 shows? It would be massive. So there's obviously years of animosity and back and forth they've had. They've had some explosive arguments, but this really stems from a comment that was made in a Howard Stern interview earlier this year where it was discussed Ace and Peter performing on the farewell tour or at the final 2 shows. Howard Stern was asking about that, and Paul Stanley said producers were demanding, quite honestly, that they play with the 2 original guys, Peter and Ace. And he said, and at this point, that would be demeaning to the band and would also give some people confusion, because if you saw people on stage who look like Kiss but sounded like that, maybe we should be called Piss. So he doesn't think very highly of that lineup. So that led Ace Frehley to call in. He spoke to Eddie Trunk, and he said he was going to tell some dirt on Paul and Gene that nobody knew, and eventually that was squashed. He said he talked it over some friends and decided not to do it. But now you have Paul Stanley in this new interview with Ultimate Classic Rock about whether or not they are going to have Ace and Peter at the final show. And it doesn't sound good, and I'm sure they're probably going to take exception to what he had to say. He says that it's just not in the cards. He says, quote, "The tour is a celebration of the band and the life of the band over the past 40 years. It's not a celebration of the original lineup. As important as the original lineup was, I can say that we wouldn't be here today if not for them, and we wouldn't be here today with them." Wow. He goes on and says, "It doesn't make sense to allow anybody to come in and call shots. We're in great shape. The band is fantastic. I don't want to mar the celebration of the farewell tour. I don't want to mar the situation. It's been too good." So what does mar mean? Mar means to impair or disfigure the appearance of something, and that means that Paul thinks that Ace and Peter would impair the appearance of their show. He doesn't think they would do a good job, which is essentially, he's saying the same thing he said earlier this year on Howard Stern, which is that Kiss would sound like piss. I cannot believe that Ace and Peter are not going to be up on stage at the Kiss final shows. Huge mistake. They have this opportunity to do a truly epic finale for the band, and because of probably temporary feelings that they'll eventually get over, this isn't happening. And it's just crazy to think that. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. Kiss is an amazing band with an amazing career, but it just makes you wish that they would be able to work things out and do the right thing for the fans and do the right thing for the legacy of Kiss. These guys are still around, they're still able to play, and they could just do the encore. But to not bring them out for a song or two, they need to make that happen. They've got time before December, it's October. Make a phone call and work it out, guys. Crazy.